Joining us is CBP Senior Advisor Ron Vitiello. Welcome, sir. It's hard to know where to start with J.B. Pritzker. I do like our viewers to know what the other side is arguing and why. So maybe you can help me. What political and legal arguments are being made by opponents of these crackdowns? I mean, what is the argument for allowing someone here unlawfully who has committed yet another offense and then let them stay here? I really do not understand that argument.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thanks for having me on. I don't understand it either. You know, there's a way for Chicago to have all the things that it wants, what their citizens want, safe streets, a secure border. We went through 4 years of chaos under the previous administration. Now we're recovering from that, both at the border, which is much safer than it's ever been in the history of the country. And we're working on a deportation effort across the country, including Chicago. And Governor Pritzker wants to run to the aid of illegal criminals that are in the country. He wants to coddle them and protect them from law enforcement, legitimate law enforcement work, laws that are on the books being enforced, instead of allowing professional law enforcement agents to cooperate with local authorities. When someone gets arrested, they're turned over to immigration authorities to be put on a path for removal if, in fact, they're in the country illegally. He rushes to the side of criminality and chaos while our front line is out there trying to protect Chicagoland, despite his rhetoric.
Yeah, he just literally compared law enforcement to terrorists. He said they're terrorizing Chicago neighborhoods. I wonder if he ever thinks about crime victims. I think one thing that may be muddying the water is the media, shockingly, and reports, episodic as they may be, raids at Home Depot, parents and children being separated. Tell us who DHS is going after and what may be the collateral consequences of those efforts.
Well, they are absolutely going after the worst of the worst. People who are in the country illegally, have a final order of deportation, post-due process, if you will, and have committed other crimes in the United States. Heinous crimes, made victims of people in the Chicagoland area. That's the targeting that is underway. Now, on the way to these cases, when there are other problems that exist, when people are coming up and trying to get in the way of legitimate law enforcement work, you put hands on an ICE agent or a frontline CBP officer or agent, you're going to go to jail. And so people are being arrested even though they're not on the path for removal. And on the way to find these worst of the worst targets, if there are other people in that home or in that location, they will be arrested as well, because although the left wants to try to tell people that being in the country illegally is not a crime, it is in fact a crime.
Right. And you get here one of two ways, being a little bit simplistic. You either cross a border without authority or you overstay a visa. So let me ask you about those who overstay a visa. So they have a temporary invitation or an opportunity to come to this country. They show so little regard for our laws that they overstay that visa. How does law enforcement find those people, identify those people, and then go through that removal process?
Well, there are numerous ways to use the data to find out where people are. As you said, when someone gets a visa to visit the United States, to visit their family, to do specialized work in the U.S., that's a contract with the American people that says we're going to give you the privilege to work, stay, or visit in the United States. But at the end of that term, usually 6 months, you will have to return. In fact, you won't be let in if the government believes you are coming to stay. And so that data exists in government holdings. It becomes targeting information for the front line that's on the ground, looking for people who are in that status or who have been deported and are not reporting to immigration authorities, or have skipped their court date, or have already been ordered by a judge to be removed in the United States. There are about 20 million people came in during the last administration. Secretary Mayorkas himself said that 85% of the people who crossed the border illegally were let into the United States. We've gone the last 6 months in the country since the leadership of Donald Trump and focus on this area. 6 months with no releases of people who have entered the country illegally further into the United States. So the border is, again, in better shape than we've ever seen it, thanks to the leadership at the department and at the White House. And now we're working on this effort in the interior to recover from what happened in the 4 years of chaos at the border and in cities like Chicago for 4 years.
Yeah, sovereign nations should know who's coming and who's staying. I don't know what is so controversial about that for our friends on the left. Ron Vitiello, thank you for your service to our country and for joining us on a Sunday night.
Delighted. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.